subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Howdy, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. So glad to have you this morning. On the diet. Hey, what happened to my thing up here? Oh, there it is. Okay. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. So glad we made it today. I got in this studio just a couple minutes before Ron did, which, as you know, was somewhere in the 6:20 range. And I got the whole show prepped. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be prepping while I'm watching videos. Good morning, Carlitos. You made it first. That's awesome. Peasant's Perspective. Good morning. When Ron read Carlitos good morning, he goes, I don't know what these people look like, so I just like to imagine what they look like. Pony Boy, good morning. Pray the Rosary Daily, good morning. Pray the Rosary Daily sent me a message this morning saying, is your wife going to ever be on the show? And I was like, we need another camera and a mic. That's what we need. We can set her right there. She could be a part of it. I think we should do that. That'd be kind of fun. All right, guys, I'm so glad you made it with us this morning. We are going to start things off with the simultaneous sip. It is the best part of the day, bar none. And I know why you wake up early and show here. All four of you right here, bright and early. You're here for the simultaneous sip. And all you need is a cup, a mug, or glass, a tankine, a chalice, a stein, a paper cup, a canteen, jug, or flask, or a vessel of any kind, and fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled dopamine hit of the day that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. And while we take it, let's listen to Kamala Harris talk about how to bring down gas prices.
And the president did say in the State of the Union, there is a price to pay for democracy. Got to stand with your friends. And as everybody knows, even in your personal life, being loyal to those friendships based on common principles and values, sometimes it's difficult. Often it ain't easy. But that's what the friendship is about, based on shared values. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's why we had to suffer through $4 plus per gallon of gas during the Russia-Ukraine incursion, right? Oh my God, we have to stand with our friends. Well, Kamala, we have to stand with our friends now. So, we're going to have to suffer through these high gas prices. Doug Wyatt, good morning. Mata Izo, good morning from New Mexico. Glad you guys are here. Doug, I'm always so happy to see you here. It's like this little prison flashback. We used to walk around the block, literally on the upper tier of the block, whether it was in DC or Philadelphia. We were in both prisons together. And we'd walk around together and we'd basically do podcast episodes back and forth. It was awesome. Pony Boy, that would be a great idea for her to come on and promote Left Behind and Without. Summer and summer programs are around the corner. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Left Behind and Without is clipping right along. It's interesting. It's like, right when a family calls and says, hey, we need help, a small random donation comes in that's just enough to cover the program. It is truly an amazing thing. And when money does come in, like she got a grant from Walmart, not a big grant, like $500, but she get ones like, I think they do it like once every biannually or something like that. It's really nice because that sets up a couple kids. So yes, absolutely. If you're looking to make charitable donations, Left Behind and Without is a great place to do it. Of course, it's tax deductible because she went through the process of getting it registered as a nonprofit and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, yeah, great program. Super amazing. And it kind of goes along with this. This is Justice Clarence Thomas. He gave a speech yesterday, and this is not something you hear a lot of times from a judge, right? This is not something you hear. I know that Clarence Thomas's wife is like super MAGA. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, she's super MAGA. In fact, when it came to the election fraud stuff, she was posting about it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if she was somewhere in the crowd on January 6th. Okay. So this is Justice Clarence Thomas talking a little bit along the same theme about yesterday, how we talked about how we have to take our country back, right? We have to do what we need to do. And in our case, we need to remodel the Republican Party so it can answer to the people. And who's going to do that? We are. If no one else is going to do it, we are. I'm not going to rely on anybody else to do it for me. I'm going to do it for myself. And that involves, of course, enrolling all of you in that process. Doug, we do not suffer, we endure, quote of the day. Yes. And we talked about that in prison. We talked about that quite a bit. Also, not becoming the thing we hate, right? Those are some of the things. And Doug, you can attest. I hope I'm pretty consistent in my values. I hope. All right. Here's Justice Clarence Thomas.
I think if we don't stand up and take ownership of our country and take responsible for it, we are slowly letting others control how we think and what we think. I think the beauty of going to school is that you learn how to think for yourself. You develop the discipline to think things through. If you think it's losing confidence, then you get up and you participate. You don't sit on the sidelines. You think that the state is being run and inconsistent with how you feel, then you get up and you participate. You prepare yourself. If you think that the medical profession is not right, well, you become a doctor or be a medical person, and you deal with that. I think we need to take ownership of our country. It's our country. I think
it is our country. What a beautiful message coming from Clarence Thomas. I love that so much. If you don't like how things are going, then you got to go get involved and don't be disenfranchised. You know, one of the things I've seen getting involved with the KCRP, the Kitsap Republican Party, is a lot of people, you know, I'll go talk to someone like, oh yeah, I used to go to those meetings. I was a PCO, but yeah, nothing ever changes. It's like, man, if you were still there and the other person who told me that was still there and the other person who told me that were still there, and then I showed up, maybe we could do something about it. Mm-hmm. But because we go in this revolving door of in and out and in and out, and the establishment loves that. You know, just enough people in the room to form a quorum, but not enough people to actually remodel things and do something different, right? That's the ticket that they've got.
Got to rearrange the deck furniture.
Got to rearrange the deck furniture. Yeah, we've got to absolutely get involved. Now, speaking of standing with our friends, who are our friends? Well, it's the Persians, the people of Iran. It's the people that suffer under terrorist regimes. It's the people who suffer at the hands of Hamas and Hezbollah and even our greatest ally, Israel. Sorry, joking on my words when I say that. That's a shout out to John, who's no big fan of Israel, right? And neither are we necessarily, but we are a fan of freedom-loving people. So we got to stand with our friends. And one of those things included getting rid of the narco-terrorists. It included getting rid of the key sponsor of terrorists, Iran. And of course, we believe that the election fraud is a big part of this. And I'm gonna share something. Everybody has a perspective, right? So clearly, I lead with election integrity, right? That touched my life big time. That's quartering soldiers in your house. When they stole the election from us and I went and said something about it, I had some consequences that arose from that, okay? So, but I did it for my friends, Ron. I did it for you and everybody
I thought
listening.
You did it for the segment because we have this great segment, when I was in prison.
Yeah, when I was in prison. Yeah, no, I didn't do it for the segment. That would be, I didn't do it for the segment. If I wanted that segment, I just kind of gotten a DUI and had 6 months in prison or something. But no, it had to be for election fraud. So anyways, it's interesting, everybody's perspective. And I'm going to share you because I've been doing so much deep diving into Bitcoin. I just have to understand it completely. And it's so funny because the Bitcoiners think this war in Iran is all about Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, huh? That's new. And it kind of ties into our theme as peasants here. It all ties together. It all ties together, right? When Trump takes decisive action doing these things, it's win-win, 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 win-win. There is nothing good about the world with the Iranian regime that chants death to America in place. There is nothing good about the world when Nicolas Maduro is sending people out of prisons into the United States to cause bedlam. Like, there's nothing good in the world when the largest slave country on the planet, China, gets cheap, undervalued oil and has slave wages and a controlled economy so that they can be mercantilistic and sell us cheap crap. You know what I mean? There's nobody wins. Trump's changing the table completely. Here's Stephen Miller talking about how Trump has warned Iran, gave them options, and we're going to listen to 2 clips here. And essentially, he's completely shut them down.
President Trump is a man who doesn't bluff. He is a man who follows through on what he says, who acts in every case with courage, resilience, determination, vision, focus, and direction. He warned Maduro. Maduro did not heed those warnings. And now look what happened. Look at the operation that took place in Venezuela. He warned before Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer happened because the Iranians did not heed those warnings. Before Operation Epic Fury, he gave Iran a chance to do the right thing. They declined, and they sustained the greatest battlefield defeat, thrashing, military annihilation we've seen in modern history. Then, after the ceasefire, President Trump said, make a deal. The Iranian terms were not satisfactory, and so President Trump flipped the tables on Iran and implemented this naval blockade. And with this blockade, President Trump is resetting the entire global order, because he is saying with our Navy, we can decide, and we alone can decide, how rogue regimes are able to finance themselves, how they're able to operate. That's the power of American naval might, Sean.
Now, he said something there. He said, we alone can decide how rogue regimes can finance themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, we completely believe that to be the petrodollar, dollar supremacy, and right, that's our understanding as laymen here.
And step aside, UN.
And step aside. Yeah, exactly. So that's our understanding. Now, where we've got the Iranians pinned in now, we had the ceasefire. They had a blockade. So we said, okay, well, we're going to blockade your blockade. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing is we're turning back any and all boats that have any association with Iran. And there's clips online of that where the military, turn your boat around. This is a lawful command, blah, blah, blah. And, and the Iranian boats are U-turning. They don't want to test it because they've seen the missiles fly, right? Hey, we're going to start shooting down narco-terrorists coming across the ocean with drugs in their boats. Sure, send a boat. Guess what? Nobody wants to get in a boat with cocaine anymore, right? It's like they're just not interested.
Nobody wants the smoke.
Nobody wants the smoke, exactly. Now, Americans, some dirtbags might want to smoke some of that crack cocaine, but they ain't getting it from Venezuela anymore, right? So we've completely shut off the strait, which is putting them in an absolute pinch point. What's going to happen is they've got another week, maybe max week and a half of the ability to store the oil and gas that they drill. And once those drills shut down, and I learned this recently, like this morning driving in here, once those wells shut down, they don't just turn back on. What happens is they build pressure and silt and other things come in and it fills them in and it makes them very difficult to reopen. Like very difficult. In some cases, you can't get them back going.
Well, this is why they call it, in the industry, they call it developing a well. You have to get the flow going in order to keep it going. And then once it's going, you can't stop, because once it stops, it might not turn back on.
Exactly. And so it puts them in a real decision-making position, because
they got to keep them flowing.
That's their lifeline. That's how they make money, is oil. And if the oil stops and some of these wells go bad, they're not going to get that production back online. On top of the fact that already contracts are moved, people are heading to the Gulf of America to buy oil from Pony Boy and his friends down there.
Well, this is some of the reason why you'll see some of these oil fields get lit on fire, because they'd rather keep it flowing than stop them.
That's right. That's what happened in Kuwait.
Yeah.
They didn't light them on fire as an act of terrorism. They light them on fire to keep the oil going.
Exactly.
That is one of those things that people don't know unless you're in the industry. Like, I didn't really understand that. Maybe Pony Boy would have understood that better. I'm glad you understood that. All right, so here's Stephen Miller again.
This embargo is squeezing the economic life out of the Iranian regime, and the United States has the capacity to continue this indefinitely if Iran chooses the wrong path. President Trump knows something else. He knows that American oil is the most important currency in the world, and that is why when he came into office, he unleashed American energy as never before, and that's why you see all of these ships coming to America empty and leaving laden with American energy. Do you agree with this embargo?
This embargo that's causing the oil flows to change is no less significant than the fall of the Berlin Wall or the dropping of the nuclear bomb. This rearranges the world order. And it rearranges in such a way right? If you listen to like Ray Dalio and stuff, they talk about China's on the incline and America's on the decline, and there's very little that can stop that, blah, 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 blah. This is one of those things that can stop that, because China's rise is predicated on cheap oil, cheap labor, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a big part of the equation for how they make money.
It's a huge part of the equation for how they make money. And the other significant thing in here is we've known this, but the significance of this is another thing. So here is Fox Business talking about how Iran has been using Bitcoin.
Second, they're said to be paid to Iran in Chinese yuan or crypto. The Bitcoin Policy Institute says bad actors are usually paying with stable coins, and U.S. authorities are cutting them off. Watch.
Stablecoins can't be confiscated, but they can be frozen. So if you're a stablecoin user who's working with the Iranian regime, your wallet can be identified if you don't practice good operational security, and Treasury can sanction you and make it so your stablecoins are moot. That runs in contrast to Bitcoin, where you can identify what illicit actors are using Bitcoin, but you can't freeze somebody's Bitcoin in the same way you can freeze somebody's stablecoin.
And that is an unintended consequence. I do want to say that crypto is a lifeline for many of the Iranian people as they see the value of their currency get devalued. But it's also a way that bad actors do things, and we're noticing it. And as I said, cutting them off. Second,
Yes, cutting them off.
they're said.
A
Now,
lifeline as their currency is devalued. That's an interesting line.
Yeah.
You could probably apply that to just about any currency, couldn't you, Taylor?
Yes, fiat, and stablecoins fall into the category of fiat.
There you go.
But Bitcoin, however, does not. So here's the significance of this, right? We have to protect the oil. We have to pinch off China and put them in a box. We've got to deal with the election integrity and the bad actors involved with that, which include Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and ultimately China. And so every move that Trump has made all points to China. We're following that thread. And that thread runs intermixed with all of this stuff. Now, something we know happened, but I don't think the significance of this has really landed on 99% of Americans yet, is that Donald Trump had signed an executive order creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and he designated a critical asset. What happens when America says that's a critical asset and the access needs to be open and not cut off, et cetera, et cetera? We move heaven and earth to make sure we have it, right?
Today we're signing, and this is very historic, an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile. This is a promise that you made throughout the campaign, and today we're keeping that promise. The reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin that the federal government already owns, so it won't cost taxpayers a dime. This is like a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. And premature sales of Bitcoin over the past years cost American taxpayers over $17 billion in lost value because we didn't have a long-term strategy.
Right.
Now we do. So,
And this is something you believe in?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And the whole community.
Very good. They made the promise, right?
Absolutely.
So there's Trump signing the Bitcoin strategic reserve in, designating it as critical. And why is that? Because it's digital gold, right? Stable coins are a new currency. This is just flipping from, Federal Reserve dollar bill notes that all have serial numbers on it to, okay, it's all digital money and we have our serial numbers and it can be controlled and cut off. It's all centralized.
Still
Bitcoin's
fiat.
different. Bitcoin's totally different. So there's a lot of people out there that confuse Bitcoin with crypto. They're not the same. Are they both cryptography based? Sure. But Bitcoin is in a class of its own. Otherwise, the United States wouldn't create a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Okay. Crypto is the fiat, is the currency. Bitcoin is the gold. That's the difference. Now, do you remember this guy? He's the Professor Yang. That's not a professor. He's a high school literature teacher. So Professor Yang was on this podcast, and there's always been a question about who started Bitcoin. Where did it come from? And Satoshi Nakamoto, who's that? We have no idea who that is. I'm actually going to show you a clip a little later on who the New York Times thinks Satoshi Nakamoto is. And he's like, I'm not Satoshi Nakamoto. Like, you know what I mean? So this is Professor Yang. And the caption here is, tell me you don't understand Bitcoin without telling me you don't understand Bitcoin. Okay? So the whole thing with Bitcoin is it can't be stopped. It's no trust in that system. It's all verification. And you have independent nodes that verify all the transactions. And all the nodes across the world, there's millions of them now, have to agree. And I could have one in my garage. You could have one in your garage. In order to corrupt Bitcoin, to hack it, so to speak, or to change it, I would have to hack every single node on the planet, or 51% of them, simultaneously within that same 10-minute period, and then convince the other half of the nodes over the next 5 verification cycles that we weren't corrupted. Does that make sense? It is impossible. And even with quantum computing, the best you could do is hack your wallet, and they've already got a change for that, right? So there's no way to attack crypto. So when Professor Yang here is talking about where are the servers, this is someone who has no idea what Bitcoin is.
So the moment people recognize that this is a CIA operation, people won't put their money into blockchain. People won't put their money into Bitcoin. They'll be like, I mean, why would I do that? You have to ask yourself this question: where are the blockchain servers located? Right? Because I imagine if you're able to control the hardware, you can also control the software. I don't care what they tell me about open source and all that. I want to know where the databases are, where the servers are physically. So
and the guy's laughing because it's like, tell me you don't know anything about Bitcoin. That's what separates Bitcoin from everything else. It's the United States didn't create a Bitcoin strategic reserve because the CIA created it. They created one because they can't stop it or control it. So now you have to play in that game. And that's one of the things Iran was doing. One of the things that Iran had going on prior to this conflict.
Iran didn't all of a sudden be like, we're going to adopt the CIA currency.
You've got to be an ultimate deep state conspiracy theorist that think that like Iran's already being run by the CIA. You know?
700 D chess.
Yeah, 700 D chess. Now, what Iran was doing, because Bitcoin is created through energy. And so Iran was one of the hot spots on the planet for these hashes, which is how you mine the Bitcoin. And they could mine a Bitcoin, which right now is right around $75,000. It peaked at $124,000 last fall. They could mine that Bitcoin for about $1,000.
Oh, well.
Okay. Dang. Now here in the United States, to mine that Bitcoin, you're spending like $68,000 to mine the $75,000
and
Bitcoin
getting
asset.
lucky.
And getting lucky. Well, it actually all kind of works out on this. So much electricity, you end up getting so many hashes. There's kind of a way that it works. Now, obviously, the more miners, then the less it is. But what was going on there was Iran was getting a lot of Bitcoin at super cheap cost, and that was how they could facilitate transactions. And it was beyond sanctions. Just like Marco Rubio said, in 5 years, we won't be talking about sanctions. They can't stop it. That's the key here. They cannot stop it. It allows peer-to-peer transactions, just like I could hand you a dollar bill and you can I could be under sanction. You could be under sanction. We could sell each other something for cash.
Right.
It's unsanctionable. That's peer-to-peer. The problem is the moment we are not peer-to-peer, now we need a third-party intermediary to trust. Visa, MasterCard, the bank, a check sent in the mail. Now we need trust. Bitcoin allows me over the internet to go peer-to-peer as if we were standing next to each other. It's revolutionary. It changes everything. So all of a sudden, Brazil and China can do a direct transaction without wiring it through banks, of which Scott Bessent can click a button and tell them to stop. You see what I'm saying? Which we're going to talk about here in a second. So here is another analyst on Bloomberg talking about how Bitcoin emerges as a potential tool for Iran. Now, this is from a little while ago, and this just goes to show it all ties together, right? It's not just the elections. That might justify overwhelming war, right? Trying to overthrow our nation through the ballot box and fraud and machines. It's not just terrorism and narco-terrorism and drugs and drug trades and weapons trades and nuclear weapons. That's all part of it. It's also the money. It's all of it. So anyone who's like, I'm so tired of foreign wars, this was the one. This is the one that prevented a World War III. And it's just going to look like a regional skirmish. In a few weeks, this will be over. Iran isn't fighting anymore. They're not launching missiles. They're testing the blockade and they're turning around. They have nothing left. If those wells run dry, they ain't producing any more Bitcoin. Whatever Bitcoin they have, they can use. That's fine. But you don't have anything to sell. You're blockaded. It's rough stuff for the regime. Okay.
It absolutely. And there is a great recent example. The U.S. Treasury Department recently sanctioned a cryptocurrency exchange, ZSEX, that was being used at scale by the IRGC to launder $1 billion, which will go towards weapons proliferation and other types of destabilizing activity. And that was because TRM, OFAC, other types of entities were able to identify wallet addresses that were associated with the regime that was using this type of crypto infrastructure. So absolutely, like these become immediate targets for national security agencies globally to go after, and ships that are paying a toll in cryptocurrency, those transactions will be there for the world to see.
You mentioned that Iran has spent decades looking for creative ways to circumvent U.S. sanctions, the UN, crypto among them, front companies. What will you be watching for to seek evidence, to find evidence that Iran is implementing a lot of this through the crypto ecosystem?
What we'll be looking for is large transfers involving wallets that we know to be associated or attributed to IRGC, which is the military unit which controls so much of life in Iran. That's the ZSEX example. We've seen other similar examples. Are these wallets being used? Or are we seeing large sums going into these wallets? Are we seeing large sums move? Are we seeing Iranian exchanges like Novitex used at scale? So what we're looking for is large amounts of funds being transferred. We've moved from a world where we're seeing sort of one-off transactions here and there to launder funds or maybe violate export control laws to these large infrastructure plays where Iran is really leveraging crypto infrastructure, whether it's stablecoins or exchanges, to move funds. So we're looking for large transfers that we can associate directly with IRGC.
Is there? Okay. And now they were able to get one of the exchanges shut down. This is the thing with Bitcoin. If you have a cold storage wallet, I can just send it from the wallet, right? And there's no exchange required. If you're holding your Bitcoin in Coinbase or FTX or Binance or any of these others, then Binance has a contract with the government. They're a corporation and they have custody, not your keys, not your Bitcoin, right? It's like having your money in the bank. If I have $10,000 in the bank and they decide to do a bail-in, it's gone. It's not my money. It's not in my custody. If I have it in my drawer at home, I still have $10,000. Right? They can sanction me. I got the cash. So that's the difference. They were making these huge plays and they were using these exchanges and they were able to get one of the exchanges they were able to put pressure on and shut down. And guess what Iran did? They just kept mining Bitcoin. They just kept selling oil in Bitcoin. And they just went through a different avenue. So we can see the transactions, but you couldn't really do anything to stop it. Now, understanding that Bitcoin is a strategic reserve now, right? And it's a critical asset. You also have to understand that the price of Bitcoin is infinite. That's the other thing. Right now, it's all based on some exchange, how many pounds or how many euros or how many dollars to a Bitcoin. But at a certain point, you stop asking how many dollars to a Bitcoin and you start saying how many Bitcoin to a dollar, right? You start pricing thing in Bitcoin and then you have to go chase around the fiat currency to make the exchange through the Bitcoin. So this is the guy that everybody thinks is Satoshi Nakamoto, Adam Black, and he is adamant he's not Satoshi Nakamoto. But he's talking here about what the value of Bitcoin would be. Timing. Remember, Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, has one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations on the planet right now. They hold their entire fortune of $7 billion in Bitcoin. So some people who are real pessimists might go, well, did he attack Iran to help with his son's business? No, that's not it. But, these guys know what's coming down the pipe, right? So this thread, we want to connect this thread. It matters to us. You can get a crypto wallet, a Bitcoin wallet. You could create your own family strategic reserve, right? Obviously, we've got the Rumble wallet. Okay. And remember, we've got our promotion going on from now till May 9th. And that is, we take the total pool of tips that come in through the Rumble wallet, and whoever is the highest tipper is going to get a 10% rebate. So we're super excited about that. I'm super excited about that. And obviously, the more people that send tips, the larger the pool gets. And you've got a chance of getting it back. So let's talk about the Rumble wallet real quick, and then we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin.
Do you know what? They took the Rumble wallet off.
We've overdone it? Are you kidding me? All right, let's have some coffee then.
Let's do some coffee. That's so funny. Right. Okay. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee. Now's your shot. I got to get this on screen just so I can see what I'm doing. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus. No crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to strip your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and carry yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does.
All right. So here's Adam, who's one of the early adopters of Bitcoin. He was one of the people emailing back and forth with Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the ones that had communication with him in the early days, back when it was just the cypherpunks. And it was like, wow, this is really cool. It's peer to peer and it can't be changed. And all, it was created intentionally to solve the money problem. And it's changing the world, clearly. I mean, who would have thought that those guys were creating something that the president would be signing on his desk? We have to hoard these Bitcoin and never sell them, right? Okay. So he's talking about the value. Again, they say with Bitcoin, it's like the internet. We're at 1996 adoption phases. So think about where you were at in 1996 and whether or not you were using the internet or not. Oddly enough, my family was. My dad was in the computer industry. So as soon as the internet became a thing and there were home computers, we had one. In the 1980s, I remember as a little kid in Japan playing on the Commodore 64.
Whoa.
Yeah, I remember playing all the different games.
I remember being jealous of a kid that had a Commodore 64.
As an elementary school kid, right? As an elementary school kid, I learned how to do DOS prompts. That's how I could go play Duke Nukem and Doom. I had to do DOS prompts.
Dude, I coded a video game in DOS 3.0. Yeah.
You know what else I did? And my dad, if he's listening, he can chime in on
using BASIC.
My dad somehow we acquired a Macintosh Classic SE, like one of those old box ones, like the original ones. And I figured out how to create folders with passwords. Oh. And so what I did, Dad, please comment on this. You need to verify this. This is so funny. So I took my I was in third grade. I created my entire elementary school class. I got the roster and I made a folder for every kid. So and then I brought the computer to school, right? And I took it into the classroom and I set it in there. And, as an elementary school kid, you pass notes, right? And so it was like, what you can do is you can go to the computer, you can click on Word, you can create a letter, and then you can drop it in whoever's folder that you want.
This is pre-email.
And I charged a nickel to write the letter. Okay.
You're the original emailer.
Yes. So I charged a nickel to write the letter and go drop it in someone's folder. And then that person had their own password and they could go log in and go read the note on the computer. So It was in class for about 3 or 4 days. And then my teacher calls my dad and she's like, you need to tell your son to take this computer home. And he's like, why? Well, she told him what I had done and how I'd set it up. And she goes, and I owe him 25 cents. So yes, I created an email system on a Macintosh Classic SE. What do they call that? Intra email or whatever it's called, or not internet, intranet. A little internet system going on.
I was also pretty blessed early on. My dad saw the wisdom of computers as well, and instead of investing in Microsoft stock, he bought an Apple II Plus. It was like $3,000. And we always talk about that, like, man, if we would just taken that money and invested in Microsoft stock, we'd all be freaking rich.
We'd all have Apple computers.
I know.
Anyways, when people are like, oh, here's my dad calling me. Let's see, what's he going to say?
Oh, no.
Dad, you're live on the air. What's up?
Tell you the story?
Sure.
What happened was you got my computer and the teacher called us and said, would you please come get the computer because I owe money. You made it so that they had to pay you 5 cents to send messages, but not to send it to open up who the message was.
Oh, it It was to get the message they had to pay. That's
to get the message, they had to pay 5 cents, and the teacher asked us to come get the computer because you were causing a problem. And we said, "Oh, we're sorry, the kid's not paid." She said, "That's not the point. Everybody's sending me messages, and I owe him money."
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that, true story. And, when people are like, where do you're like such an entrepreneur. Listen, man, I was born this way. I've got story after story of some of my early business ventures. Okay, so this is Adam talking about the price of Bitcoin. You have to internalize this. One of the things that we get when we talk about Bitcoin over at 1776 Live is it too late yet? And it encourages people to go look at crypto, other cheaper coins,
right?
Because we can get in early. None of them are going to be like Bitcoin. It's a different thing, okay?
And, the fact that we had an end of epoch new all-time high, 73.5, just before the halving. It's kind of, I viewed as a kind of confirmation that it would have gone higher if not for all of those headwinds. And so, I think it's probably incorrect to draw too many inferences from the last cycle. And so, if you take that out, I think that there's a lot of positive news that $100,000 is way too cheap. I expect we'll end the year much higher, and we get between 500,000 and a million during this cycle. So we'll see if that transpires. And I think the other thing is, people talk about diminishing returns and different models. I mean, models are not necessarily that predictive, but stock to flow, power law, various other models, and they are this diminishing return theory. Like technically an S curve, like adoption of internet, adoption of mobile phones when they first came out, things like that. They go through a gradually phase where it's kind of niche thing and it's expensive and very few people have it. And then it becomes a social phenomenon when everybody has it and the adoption starts to get steeper, right? So it could almost be the opposite, where people are calling for diminishing returns, but maybe there are 100 million people with some form of Bitcoin exposure. That can reach a tipping point when there are a few more people that have it, so that everybody's talking about it and they're starting to use.
So what he's saying, it's like, you go through history and people are like, why does people don't need home computers? There's no point in that. Then along comes Dell and everybody gets a home computer. And it's like, oh, there's a market there. But why do we have to replace the horse and carriage? I mean, this is silly. This is silly. Henry Ford comes along. He's like, I think everybody would like a car. All of a sudden, everybody gets it. How about the internet? Oh, what's the point of that? The post office is great. And, telephone's great. What do you need the internet for? And all of a sudden, now it's ubiquitous. Even 3-year-olds are accessing the internet to play their games.
The problem with all these things is that they add value that is undeniable, and you can't stop it.
Yeah. The idea that the United States was create a strategic Bitcoin reserve and then watch the value of Bitcoin go to zero is ridiculous, right? They're planning on the value of Bitcoin going to multi-million dollars per coin. Bitcoin will be the way we sell oil. It's now the petro coin, right? That's going to be the thing, because Bitcoin is the representation of energy stored. And where do we get our energy? El petro, right? That's what's going on here. And that's why Iran was an early adopter of it. It avoids sanction. Venezuela, Brazil, China, they're all using it. So that's why Trump is adamant about resetting the world order now, getting a reserve. And we're probably going to, I would not be surprised if by the end of Trump's term, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we settle out our oil transactions in Bitcoin. So do you want to be someone sitting on the sideline with crypto coins trading against Bitcoin, or do you want to be someone who owns Bitcoin? The other great thing too is now you can borrow against Bitcoin, so you never actually have to sell it, which is what these nation states are trying to do. Okay, so this is Scott Bessent talking more about how he's going after the bank accounts of the Iranians, specifically in the Middle Eastern countries that have up till now shielded the banking of the Iranians and allowing them to exchange money through there, and even reaching into China.
Yeah, I think that,
which, by the way, is another reason why Bitcoin is unstoppable, because this phase is the last time these tools are going to be available for America to use.
That's not a correct characterization. Yesterday, we announced Operation Economic Fury, and we, for over a year, we have had maximum pressure on the Iranians, both on blocking payments into the Iranian state and going after the accounts of the IRGC. One of the what may prove to be fatal mistakes that the Iranians made was bombing their GCC neighbors and who are now willing to be much more transparent in terms of the funds or do a deeper dive in investigating the funds that are held within their banking systems. So we have pushed out to them the request that we want to freeze more funds of the leadership of the IRGC and any members of Iranian leadership. The other thing that we have done is we have told countries that if you are buying Iranian oil, that if Iranian money is sitting in your banks, we are now willing to apply secondary sanctions, which is a very stern measure. And the Iranians should know that this is going to be the financial equivalent of what we saw in the kinetic activities.
Basically, we're taking out the money. We're taking out their cash. To the extent that we can take out their cash, we're taking out their cash. We are starving out the IRGC. They're just not going to be able to pay for anything. I mean, they're basically going to be left with the bullets they have. That's it. And I'm sure it's going to be ugly. I feel deeply for the Iranian citizens who are going to be suffering the redirected wrath of the IRGC as they seek to maintain control. But the best thing Iran can do is capitulate. They have the best thing they can do is capitulate and come back into privately to the League of Nations, as they say. Even John Fetterman gets this, giving praise to Donald Trump for going after Iran. It's all of the things, right? It's all of the things. Depending on your perspective, like we saw the election stuff and the election thread early, you could see the drug trade and the weapons trafficking and the terrorism. That's obvious. The Iran doesn't get a nuke. There's one right there. But you've got North Korea with a nuke and Israel has a nuke and they're not supposed to have them either, right? So that's not reason enough alone. Does that make sense? But then it's also banking. You can't have a world where Iran sits on top of the banking cartel as well. And Bitcoin makes it impossible for any nation state to deal with it. It's decentralized at its core, and everyone who runs a node has a say in it. And that's the thing that Professor Yang clearly has no idea how Bitcoin actually works.
What President Trump decided to do was deal with the Iranian regime. Every single president since 1979 wanted to deal with it. And how could you turn your back and pretend I mean, could you imagine if Iran acquired a nuclear bomb, where they would be right now, or they were able to build the kinds of missiles that could reach Europe or the other American assets in the region for that. So that's what's necessary. That's the right side of history for me. And I'll be the only Democrat that supported it publicly, but I guarantee I'm not the only Democrat, at least privately, refuse to acknowledge that, because politically it's very toxic as a Democrat.
You can't acknowledge the orange man does anything good, but secretly they're all like, oh, thank goodness for Trump. Which, depending on how that really plays out in their personal feelings, it might stave off an impeachment. Right? Some Democrats are like telling the House members, hey, knock that off. I don't want to vote against this guy. He's actually doing good things. He's cleaning up. So even if we come back into power, at least we'll have a good situation to come back into. Scott Bessent is here talking about taxes. Let's see. Oh, he's making a threat to the oil companies. So as this engagement in Iran broke out, Tim Burkhart told us, listen, they jacked the price of oil up long before, or the price of gas, long before the expensive oil actually came to market, right? The moment we dropped a bomb, they're like, jack the prices up.
But they do this every time.
Yes.
It takes weeks for the expensive oil to get here, but the prices go up, and then the prices stay up while the cheap oil makes its way back in.
Exactly. So Scott Bessent says we're not going to do that. In fact, we're going to use some of our financial tools if you're gouging. So when the price of oil comes down, it needs to reflect at the pump just as fast as when the price
downward trend on inflation.
Yeah. Well,
besides oil.
In core.
In core inflation.
Yeah, and the market-based indicators are also telling you that there is no transfer in terms of inflation expectations.
What about the impact of the oil price and higher gas prices on the real economy? You started off by talking about how much better the refunds look, up 13%. That's money in consumers' pockets, but does it get offset by the higher gas prices?
It could, but again, I think the gas prices will start coming down pretty quickly. We've had the big declines in the past 2 weeks. We'll be looking at Treasury to try to keep the retail gas stations honest, that you did this on the way up, better be doing this on the way down. And I'm sure the president will call out anyone who's a bad actor in terms
that
of.
sounds like a warning.
I am sure that everyone will be a good actor.
It sounds like a warning. I'm sure everyone's gonna play nice because, as Kamala says, you have to defend your friends. This is the price of democracy, right? Okay. Donald Trump was asked in his interview with Maria Bartiromo because apparently there was another attempted or successful, who knows, cyber hack by China. And you know what I love about Donald Trump? He's just so candid about it. Like, he's like, yeah, and?
I wrote because I had heard that China is giving weapons to, you're seeing it all over the place, to Iran, that China is giving weapons.
Giving them?
And I wrote him a letter asking him not to do that. And he wrote me a letter saying that essentially he's not doing that.
Okay. Well, we just heard from the FBI recently that there was a major cyber attack attributed to China. What response is under consideration for that cyber attack?
We do it to them. They do it to us. We do it to them. You know.
Well, when was the last time we did a cyber attack in China?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that, but we do them. They do us. It's been like that for a long time.
So it's not going to be addressed?
I'll address things, but you know, it is what it is. Look, China's China. They're never easy, but we're doing great with China. I'm the toughest person in China anywhere in the world. I put on 100% tariff on Chinese cars. We don't have a Chinese car in the whole country.
Look, they do it to us. We do it to them. Look, we've been doing this for a while. It's a tit for tat game. Like, what do you want me to expect from me? What do you want me to wage nuclear war over a cyber attack? They're responding to us cyber attacking them. We started the whole mess. Al Gore invented the internet. You know what I mean?
Al Gore. Oh boy.
So I love that. He is the toughest on China, but he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. That is one of the funniest things that Trump ever says. She and I are great friends. We get along great. That makes it so that she can't really say Trump is bad because Trump never says she is bad. Meanwhile, he's cutting off all his energy. He's cutting off. He's protecting Taiwan. He's, getting rid of all of their proxies that they do things with. He's kicking them out of the Panama. But she and I get along great. She don't get along great. Are you kidding me?
I think I did hear. Didn't we hear a press release recently where they were like, "You're going to China? Yeah, I'm going to go over there and give him a big hug."
I'm going to go over there and give him a big hug. No. Swaddling hijab Ilhan Omar was on with Charlemagne the God, and he was asking her about fraud and all that kind of stuff. And remember, we found out from Joni Ernst that Ilhan Omar put an amendment in a bill that was going to give $1 million to some care place that was at a restaurant. Okay,
right.
And obviously, we know everything that's been going on in Minnesota, which we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. Articles of impeachment have been filed on Tim Walz.
Getting too ahead of him. Big show.
Yeah. So Charlemagne the God is asking about, well, what about all this fraud that's going on in Minnesota? How does that affect things? And her answer is, I think, kind of interesting.
It's now 230 million that has been.
They say, well, 250 is what they say.
Yeah.
Misuse funds meant for child nutrition.
Yeah, 230 to 250.
Mm-hmm.
There's been about 77 or so
75 defendants.
That have been indicted. Many of them have taken plea agreements.
That makes it. They got to make it hard for you, right? Just in general, not because you got anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But when he can point and say, "Well, this actually happened."
I mean, it doesn't make it hard for me, but it does make it hard for the average Somali business owner.
There you go.
It makes it hard for the average immigrant business owner. It makes it hard for the average Black business owner because it does create this cloud of suspicion, and obviously it's become very politicized, and it will continue to be politicized as we get closer to November. And the level of harassment people are dealing with, even you'll have people go to restaurants, coffee shops.
Oh, restaurants. Like a restaurant that you were trying to funnel $1 million through, maybe?
With their cameras harassing all of these business owners
and daycares
and
right?
daycare centers where people have not been able to take their children because
they weren't taking their kids there anyways. That's the thing. The amazing thing about that is she's assuming that there's legitimate businesses.
Right.
Now, we would have all assumed that. And, you know, by the law of large numbers, you'd think there would be some. They just couldn't find any. And that's the scandal.
Nick Shirley, come on, man.
You know, Nick Shirley goes around with that guy who was investigating this for years and years. And it's like, you can't find a single daycare that's taking public money like that has kids in it. Now, there's lots of videos that went out and they'd go to other daycares that were not on the public funds. They weren't getting the grant money and they had kids in them. They were operating as legitimate businesses with a profit loss, and you got to have so many kids. And there were actually kids in those businesses and no tax dollars. But everywhere they went with tax dollars, there was nothing. Interesting. Interesting how that worked. Right. And so when she's saying that, it's like, well, it doesn't affect me. Oh, what about the vineyard? The net $30 million net worth, you know, the whole thing. It's like, geez Louise. Charlemagne the God is extremely disingenuous.
Oh, yeah.
Right. If he has someone that's conservative on, he brings up the most niche scandal thing for him. He has Ilhan Omar. Dude, she's riff with things that are a
and
problem.
He rolls out a carpet.
He rolls out a carpet. Yeah. Not that it affects you at all. No,
right.
It directly affects her. We have her and Keith Ellison on tape taking kickbacks. You know what I mean? Okay. Attorney General Tad Blanche. He's acting Attorney General Tad Blanche, likely to become the Attorney General Tad Blanche. Blanche. I have to say, I've been critical of him. Peter Ticklin's been very critical of him. But yet he's the one who broke free the J6 deal yesterday, which is a big deal. In the private side today, in subscription only, we're going to listen to Joe Biggs talk about how significant that dismissed with prejudice was for his case. They have like statutory money coming to them as a payback, $10,000 a day. He was in prison for 4 years. Okay. I was in prison for 420 days. No, I did not get high in prison. Okay. But I was in prison for 420 days. So do the math. That's what the government owes me statutorily if we got that same deal. So Todd Blanche, there very well may have been a case that Pam Bondi was a Bill Barr 2.0 and Todd Blanche is Trump's wingman. And I have believed this since the beginning. And Doug, you can talk about this. When people talked about getting out of prison and wanting to get paid, I was like, yeah, that's going to come, but it's going to come in like this order. There has to be disclosures all the way. And the timing of that, who knows what that was going to be? We're getting closer. We're getting closer. There's supposed to be a J6 report out. We got the FACE Act report, right? All these different things. Now, if some Democrat like Tom Tillis is like, hey, you are paying the J6ers, you can put a report in to say, do you support this type of due process violations, civil rights and constitutional rights violations? Are you endorse this? Do you see what I'm saying? They have to have the evidence, the proof. It's best if the system self-corrects. If Donald Trump came in and just said, we're going to fix that, 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 and he did a lot of that, right? But you override courts, you suspend habeas corpus, and you know what I mean? You don't respect
creating new kind of weird precedents.
It creates all these new weird precedents. So the next time we get a Democrat or someone that has a different political persuasion, they do rule like a king. So Donald Trump wants to use the system. If the system, the weaponization, you've got to disclose the weaponization, then you can go do something about it. And I actually think in this new age, the key to like bypassing blackmail is just release it. Just release it and be honest about it. If someone came and said, hey, I'm going to blackmail for this, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm just going to tell everybody about it and then just, let the cards fall where they may. It's just ultimately just negate it. And what happens with the internet is you're always just one video upload away from the whole thing falling apart. That seems to be what happened with Eric Swalwell. You got one video here, and it's more than, hey, we met in a skiff and, Eric Swalwell had a Chinese girlfriend named Fang Fang Bang Bang and, blah, 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 but we don't see it, right? But the moment we saw it, all of a sudden, you're out. I mean, just like that in
we don't
one
even
week.
need to hear the words. We can see it with our
We can
eyes.
see it. Yeah, it's verified metadata. Boom, you're done. So here's Todd Blanche saying that they've refocused the Department of Justice and the FBI to go after real criminals. Now, this is great. This is great. They should be doing their job anyways. The debate's still up whether we actually even need the FBI, but we'll see.
I can tell you that we're doing exactly the same thing today that we've been doing for the past 14 months, which is working hard to put all of the president's priorities into action to try to keep America safe. And we've refocused a lot of efforts away from where they were the past 4 years and into a place where we think they should be, which is going after drug dealers, going after violent criminals, going after terrorists, and also anybody that's committed any fraud. And that's our focus. It's not a new focus, but it's going to continue to be the focus going forward.
Excellent. You make sure some politicians are on that list, because if they're not, then we know you just retargeted the American people. You know what I mean? Now, I mentioned that Waltz has articles of impeachment filed.
Impeachment of Governor Tim Walz for failure to faithfully execute the laws of the state of Minnesota, abuse of power, and obstruction of oversight. Under Minnesota Constitution Article 8, Section 1, the governor may be impeached for malfeasance, nonfeasance, or corrupt conduct. These standards do not require a criminal conviction. They require a breach of public trust and a failure to uphold the duties of the office. Additionally, Article 5, Section 3 requires the government to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed. Minnesota statutes governing fraud oversight and fiduciary responsibilities require state leadership to safeguard taxpayer funds. Evidence presented in legislative and congressional investigations show that billions in taxpayer funds were lost through fraud in Minnesota social services programs. Oversight systems failed repeatedly under executive leadership. Federal investigation and lawmakers have estimated up to $9 billion in fraud across multiple programs administered by the state.
So he goes on and on to describe more and more of the stuff there. Whether or not Tim Waltz is ultimately impeached or not is going to be dependent on how badly the Democrats feel they're getting burned, right? If you feel like you're a Democrat and you can't win if it continues, then you'll vote for impeachment. Or if you yourself have, are being the backlash of being in the same party with Tim Waltz, the only thing you can do is create some separation. So, Minnesota is a Democrat state. I think they have majorities where they need them. So who knows if that's going to be successful, but it's been done. It's now on the record. So yesterday was a big day, Ron. What was yesterday?
Tax day.
Tax day. Hey, did you know that tax day is not ubiquitous, that we haven't always had income taxes? When Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan's show, he addressed this, how we as a nation can do without taxes. We didn't always have them.
Unless they pay a big price, and the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. They, believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now, but we had a commission meeting in the I think it was 1887. Think of this problem. We were so rich. We had so much money. We didn't know what to do. So they set up a blue ribbon commission on tariffs. And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China does it. That's what China did. If you want to open a factory and sell cars, if you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They wouldn't take our cars. But if you build a plant in China, you can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of Elon. He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy.
So he's talking about how we used to pay for the government's revenue through tariffs. And we had so much money that they had like a surplus. Like, what do we do with this? But other nations didn't want to pay the interest on the money through the tariffs. So they really bought off our politicians. And you can go learn all about it. The book Creature from Jekyll Island breaks this down. It's a stunning when you read it, again, it's another one of those you want to vomit in your mouth because you look at the world around you and you're just like, I live in this world of illusion, you know? So Dan Scavino, who is Donald Trump's right-hand man, he started out as his caddy and became his essentially social media manner, and he's probably the most non-family loyal person to the president ever. On 8/8/25, he posted, abolish the IRS, and he recently retweeted that or re-X that. What do you call it now? You know?
I don't know.
Reposted it. So we're on this path to abolish the IRS. Here is from yesterday. This is Scott Bessent. They did that same press conference where he talked about going to the Iranian money. He talked about how this year is one of the biggest tax refund years ever.
Here to tell you that it has been a fantastic tax season. It has gone smoothly. It has gone efficiently from the point of view of the IRS, but most importantly, it's been a great tax season for the American people. Thanks to promises made, promises kept, through the working families tax cuts, the president has delivered the record refunds to the American people. More than 45% of the filers of the returns that we have seen have had at least one of the 4 president's signature policies. No tax and tips, no tax and overtime, the deductions for our great seniors, and the deductibility of interest on auto loans for American-made cars. And I will tell you that the biggest, one of those that Americans have taken is no tax and overtime. And it's the American way. If you want to work longer hours, you get to keep more of your money. And with that, we are seeing, I want to encourage everyone out there watching today to change their withholding if they haven't already done so, because if you change your withholding, then you will get an automatic real wage increase, be on a weekly or a monthly basis, and you will be able to keep more of your money this calendar year. So with that, we have also seen with the Trump accounts, we have had 5 million families file.
Now that last little bit where he says, go change your withholdings, that's clip has been pulled out and people are going, look, he's alluding to the IRS being abolished. And I listened to that a couple times. I'm like, that's not what he's saying. He's saying change your withholdings to get more money back. It's nothing to do with withholding, because the way the refund works, it's a refund, dum-dums. You paid them 0% interest, and then they refund it to you. And if you miss a tax payment, they charge you 12% interest.
Right.
Okay. So I've always thought it was insanity when people have money withheld from their paycheck. That's just them simply admitting that they don't want to save the money for taxes. You could invest it somewhere else and make money on it and then pay the IRS on April 15th.
It's a sign that you don't have discipline.
It's a sign that you don't have discipline. Exactly. So the fact that we are giving big refunds, that means you're overfunding. Now, the truth of the matter is, and this is something, we do not live in a world where you can just say taxation is theft. Okay. It's not theft. You have roads, you have law enforcement, which I don't care what you feel. After being to prison, I back the blue. Do I think cops have to be held to a high standard? Yes. Do I think all cops are bad cops? Yes. But that's based on the premise that if we had good cops, there wouldn't be bad cops. Right.
Well, and also it's not theft because in some weird way we have agreed to it.
In some weird way we have agreed to it. Yes. But there are what's going on in Iran couldn't do that. Couldn't do that if we didn't pay taxes. Now, what are authorized taxes? Sales tax, authorized. Tariffs, authorized. Tax on guns, actually authorized. Okay. Tax on gambling winnings, authorized. Okay. There's a whole bunch of taxes that are constitutional that are authorized, and you should pay them. If you go to the store and there's a sales tax, it's a point of sale, one-time tax on your consumption, your choice of consumption. Totally legitimate. Income tax, on the other hand, is a whole different story. That's a whole different story. The entire IRS is set up as an incentivization program. They can steer what types of businesses you open, what types of things you buy based on tax deductions.
Well, listen to what Scott Bessent just said. You know, if you buy a United States made car, you get to write off the tax.
The interest.
It's an incentive.
AKA buy Americans.
Right.
So we're incentivizing you through this tax scheme.
Right.
Now, Bukele blew the whistle on this whole thing. And he's not the first guy to blow the whistle, by the way, talking about how the whole tax system is a fraud, because not $1 that you pay in income tax goes to anything other than to pay the interest on the debt of the money that was printed when you bought a house, when you opened a credit card, when you bought a car. So not only do you pay the interest on the loan itself, but then the entire world has to pay interest on that dollar based on the bonds that the Treasury does its little exchanging and swap. And we listened yesterday or was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, where Ben Bernanke's like, the Fed just puts the money in the accounts. Like they're not, it's not backed by anything. Hence the necessity of Bitcoin. So here's Bukele, the first sovereign nation that went to a Bitcoin standard and legalized it as tender.
For instance, the financial situation of the United States. When I talk to my conservative friends right here, they always tell me the problem is high taxes. But they're wrong. Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. You're right in that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. But even those high taxes, higher than a lot of places in the world, but even those taxes are really funding the government. So who's financing the government? Government is financed by treasury bonds, paper. And who buys the treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Someone could ask, well, so if the government can print unlimited amounts of money out of thin air, did they collect taxes? I mean, in theory, it would make sense, right? If they can print unlimited amounts of money, why would they need taxes for? The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. We're talking, but it's true. The government is funded by money printing. Paper backed with paper. A bubble that will inevitably burst. The situation is even worse than it seems. Because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost. The dollar will fall, and the Western civilization with it. If the next president of the United States doesn't make the necessary policies and structural changes, sooner or later that bubble will burst. There's still time. You don't have to make the same mistakes we did in the 60s and the 70s.
And that is why Donald Trump created the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. It is impossible for us to go back to a gold standard. It is impossible because self-custody of gold is very problematic. Transacting in gold is extremely problematic. International transactions, you want to order something off eBay that's getting shipped overseas, impossible. It all requires an intermediary. It requires trust in an exchange, a bank, an institution, and all of that can be sanctioned and blah, 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 right? Bitcoin changes the game. And you have to recognize this is from the IRS code, or this is the Code of Federal Regulations, section 601, 602, tax forms and instructions. And I'm going to highlight it here. The service distributes the forms and instructions to help taxpayers comply with the law. The tax system is based on voluntary compliance, and the taxpayers complete and return the forms with payment of any tax owed. This word right here matters. This word voluntary. What does voluntary mean?
Of your own free will.
Of your own free will. Of your own choice. Uncoerced by threat, fear, force, or coercion. Intelligently, willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily. Right? The compliance part is you volunteer to comply with a code that doesn't apply to you unless you volunteer. The trick is they don't tell you that you're volunteering, and they will enforce things on you if you don't volunteer. Here's former IRS agent. He's been making the rounds today or lately. He was on Laura Logan show, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he talks about how he, as an IRS enforcement agent, the guy that had the guns, literally, he was the gun trainer at the IRS, that when they went and raided someone, that he's the guy that, you know, had the guns pointed at him saying, put the handcuffs on and we're taking all your jewelry. Okay. And he found out about this, did his own research. He hasn't paid taxes since like 1998. And they even took him to court and he won.
Into my career at the IRS, I was listening to a talk radio show on KSFO out in San Francisco. Still there, the station. And this lady was on the show talking about the income tax and that most Americans weren't actually required to pay it. There was no law ever passed by Congress, signed by a president, that required the average American to pay the income tax. And I'm thinking, no, lady, Americans are required to pay this, and I'm here to make sure of it. But it turned out that after 2 years of off-duty, research, while I would still go to work every day as an IRS criminal investigator, I slowly gathered evidence. I didn't, make anything up. I just looked at Supreme Court case law, the Internal Revenue Code, the Code of Federal Regulations, and, more details than I ever saw in the CPA exam or at San Jose State or in the IRS training. But these were details that were incontrovertible. I mean, the Supreme Court, isn't supposed to be the supreme law of the land once they make a decision. Over this 2-year period, driving my wife crazy and not being able to be soccer coach to my kids as much as I would have wanted, after my 50-hour-a-week job, I'm investigating whether this income tax, there's a problem with it.
Yeah. And a lot of people have investigated it and they've come to the same conclusion, but what you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? Right? Now, here's the thing. Income tax enforcement is something, this was a congressional hearing, and I'm sorry, this video is like a TikTok video. I've got this longer clip somewhere. Actually, I won't pull it up. I've got a clean clip of this, but this is the whole thing, right? It's voluntary compliance, but they use coercion to enforce it.
As we all know, that our U.S. tax system is a voluntary tax system, and we depend on people willing every year to sit down, fill out that form, and pay their appropriate amount of taxes. So I really think enforcement is a reward to those who voluntarily comply. And I think if the public does not see that the IRS is enforcing the laws, we're going to be at risk of losing people continuing to voluntarily comply.
Okay. Okay. Why? Because they want to maintain control. I've said this ever since I figured this out. They don't care about the money. They can print that shit. They care about control. They care about making sure that you buy what they want you to buy, don't buy what they want you to buy, build businesses the way they want you to build them, etc. Employ people the way they want you to employ them. That's what the system is doing. Bukele nailed it there. The money doesn't go to fill in potholes. We're talking about income tax. Taxes are completely legitimate. Taxes are necessary. The phrase taxation is theft really needs to leave our vocabulary because it's how we pay for public services when we're talking about property tax, school bond levies, sales tax, et cetera, et cetera.
And we volunteer it.
Huh?
And we volunteer it.
Well, no, that's not volunteer. You ain't buying something if you don't pay the sales tax. It's a point of sale tax, but it's a one-time tax.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Income tax is a different story. Income tax is a different story. Now, if we had income tax and it actually went to public services, not to pay debt on paper, right? It would be a different thing. We would be, oh my gosh, could you imagine how much money we'd have? And we would limit government spending, right? We want our taxes to be used efficiently, effectively, in the best possible way where we get results for it. But when it's untethered from real value, right? When you're not actually spending gold to make sure the pothole gets filled, it's easy to print the money, spend it on something else, and then come back for a second round and go, oh yeah, we still have to fill in the potholes. This is the game Washington State's playing, right? This is the game Washington State's playing. Hey, we don't have enough money for our bills. How do you not have enough money for your bills? The potholes are still in the road. The homelessness are still on the street. It's an incentive program. It's trying to curb behavior. The more homeless people on the street, The more people in Seattle are willing to pay higher taxes, XYZ, because they want to get rid of the homeless people. And so the government sees it as an incentive to keep the homeless people because it's a well you can keep on tapping for people to keep on paying more because they see suffering all around them. So we have to create accountability. This is going to be a part of our political remodel for sure. Now, Todd Blanche on the enforcement side of things is like, oh yeah, by the way, pay your share.
There's a whole reformation happening. There's now no tax on tips. So you have thousands and thousands of workers in this country who get who need it the most, who get a meaningful break. You have a new fraud task force. That's all President Trump. We are going to focus very, very heavy on the fraud and waste that's happening across this country through our tax dollars. That's because the president is a driver of results. And so I don't have any issues with that. And as a matter of fact, I think it's why he was elected.
Oh, well, the clip goes on to say, he goes, pay your share, fair share, pay your share. Okay, I get it. And you're going to go enforce, great, but we got a long ways to go. I've never met anyone, Republican or Democrat, that thinks the tax dollars go in the right places, right? Even if you concede to the taxation scheme, you know it's not going to the right places. And guys like Nick Shirley just blow up the narrative that it is completely. Here's that same IRS investigator, Joseph Bannister, talking about how the IRS itself is committing fraud in the way they go about doing it. And that creates the coercion that puts fear in people to volunteer. Hence the coercion into volunteering.
Prosecuted. You went to trial. You won that trial. Are you worried you'll be prosecuted again?
No, actually, there were two criminal investigations against me over the years. One from 2001 to 2004, and then another one in 2010. And all the while, not filing a tax return, and not out of some sense of civil disobedience. Of course, my investigation indicated that I didn't have a filing requirement. I confronted my IRS supervisors about the evidence that I gathered, and they told me to hit the road, to leave and not discuss any of my questions. So all these years, I had to go with what I knew to be true as a certified public accountant and for my own life. And the fact is, the same fact pattern would fit with most Americans, although I don't, tell people what to do. But for myself, since I was a link in the chain of putting people in prison over the income tax, I felt that I had to, absolutely speak up about it. The IRS didn't want to talk about it. And so that's basically how the last 26 years have gone for me.
You don't have to identify them, but I'm curious. I mean, when you are in a work setting, you have coworkers, you have colleagues, you often make friends with people that you're around in an office environment. Do you ever still communicate with people who work at the IRS? And if so, what are those communications like?
They don't really understand the issue. They either dodge it or they just have no clue that it's even going on. They just want to speak, IRS speak. And so I have to, I remember how to speak that way. So I basically have to just, deal with people that don't realize what they're doing is illegal. The IRS has to literally lie to their own computer systems to achieve assessments. I've coined the term the 1040A scam. And I certainly wish, Congressman, you were still in Congress, or you still can get into the Attorney General's chair, because you would absolutely find computer fraud that the IRS is engaged in on a daily basis for decades. And it needs to be investigated and prosecuted. It's absolutely illegal. And that's why I didn't want to go along with it any longer.
28 years he has not filed income taxes. Twice he's been investigated. No dice on doing anything about it, right? 28 years. But yet most people do what Jeff Booth, who's a Bitcoiner, says. Again, we can look at these systems and we know they're ripe with fraud. We look at these systems, we know that it's supposed to be voluntary. We just don't know how to unvolunteer. And we find ourselves stuck in this position of rage. Most people, this is Jeff Booth, most people are feeding back against the system that they said they hated and using the exact same money that they said they hated to increase the power of the state and the system over them. Bitcoin fixes this. When Donald Trump talks about getting rid of taxation, it's because Bitcoin becomes inevitable. It's like international internet cash that you can't stop a peer-to-peer transaction. Okay. And so things have to be revamped. The banking system as we know it, we played this yesterday where Scott Bessent said, listen, we created the banking system as it stands today at Bretton Woods. We could just have another Bretton Woods and change the way it is. And Jamie Dimon, who just a couple years ago was saying Bitcoin is rat poison, and he was firing employees at Chase that were buying Bitcoin, all of a sudden now he's completely flip-flopped. You know why? The inevitable is the inevitable. Enough people have stood up against the system. This is what I've said all the way back from season 1. Your dollars vote louder. Vote with your dollars. Your eyes, your dollars, and your clicks. When you're using their dollars, right, and you're doing the incentive programs, you give them power. The same power that we saw Biden abuse, Obama abuse, even the Trump administration. You can make a lot of arguments that they abuse that power too. How do you change it? We move to a whole new system, and Jamie Dimon is now on board with this.
Blockchain is real. It's been around for quite a while, but now it's becoming more effective, more efficient, because people are finding ways to do it faster and cheaper, permission or not permission. Smart contracts, I think, will probably be real.
Permission or not permission. That's the key. They're losing control anyways. There's a new gold out there. It's called Bitcoin. And nations can interact with it. You and I can interact with it. I can interact with a nation state. And while everyone can see the transaction, nobody can stop it. You can't sanction it. You can't nuke all the nodes, unlike what Yang, Professor Yang says you can do. And we have a new Fed chairman that's probably going to be voted in here really soon, who is all on board with this. So here's from Lark Davis. He says, the next Fed chair isn't your grandpa's central banker. Kevin Warsh just dropped a 69-page financial disclosure, and it reads like a Silicon Valley pitch deck. He's got SpaceX stake, Polymarket, crypto prediction markets, Ethereum development tools, Tenderly, crypto fintech, Lemon, Cash, and Stashfin, AI workforce platforms, robotic coffee bars, herpes vaccines, I don't know about that, and reversible male contraceptives, big question mark on that one, okay? And a digital cloning platform, Delphi II. His net worth is over 100 million. He worked with Stanley Druckenmiller and called Bitcoin the new gold for anyone under 40. That's the new Fed chair. Jamie Dimon says it's here to stay and it works. It's been around for a while. It's been proven. Donald Trump created a Bitcoin strategic reserve and considers it a critical asset. Other nations have been using it to bypass sanctions. Marco Rubio says in 5 years, we won't even talk about sanctions anymore because we won't be able to do them. Our sanctions are going to be at the border when we can charge tariffs. Whole new planet is coming. So
we'll be charging them in Bitcoin.
Whether you filed yesterday or not, I'm not here on this show to tell you one way or the other. We just have to see it as it is. Taxation is not theft. You volunteered. Income tax is not lawful. They've created all kinds of ways to enforce it, to punish you because your neighbors volunteered. Does that make sense? It's a reward to those who voluntarily comply, not because you, the one not filing, has committed any crime. Now, taxes are incredibly important in our system. And when we do our political remodel, we have to emphasize this. These taxes have to be well spent because going forward, and I don't know when the switch is going to get flipped, taxes will become real money through the Bitcoin system. It will become very real. So we can't piss it away. We can't piddle it away with fraud and things like that because we can't just print more of it. There's only so much of that to go around, and it's going to be precious to us. So things are definitely on the change. On another front, Tulsi Gabbard made criminal referrals to the DOJ against the fake Ukraine impeachment whistleblower, Eric Ciaramella. Now, 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, if we said that name on a stream like this, our stream would probably drop. YouTube would remove the episode, right? Facebook would delete your account. Twitter would delete your account. Couldn't even say the guy's name. Couldn't even say the guy's name. Even people like Tim Pool, who anytime because this topic was well talked about, the whistleblower, okay, couldn't say who it was. Well, Eric Ciaramella and the former Office of Investigator General for the ODNI, Michael Atkinson, have both been referred to the DOJ for prosecution. That entire Ukraine Gate narrative was completely bullcrap. Along with the Ukraine Gate narrative that was completely bullcrap, what were they covering up? They were covering up this, along with other things. They wanted Trump out. Why? Because Trump out's changing everything. They wanted Trump out. John Solomon, this was reported a little bit while ago, but he was just recently talking about this, how Zelensky was is on a phone call, a recorded phone call, talking about getting kickbacks through USAID.
I heard about it over the course of the day. The United States government, the National Security Agency, intercepted conversations of President Zelensky's government in Ukraine in 2022, late 2022, conspiring with federal workers at the USAID to come up with a plan to take $200 million of USAID money. That is your money, folks, taxpayer money.
Prints it out of thin air.
Through a series of transactions, move it into the United States, and launder it into Joe Biden's 2024 campaign and the Democratic National Committee. We have the intercepts for the first time. Tulsi Gabbard's team was willing to declassify them. There is now an investigation underway, beginning with USAID, to look at who was involved, whether any crimes were committed, and if that is the case, to refer that to the FBI in the next few days. Those declassified documents up at justthenews.com. You can go check about it today. Members of Congress have been clamoring all day to get their hands on the documents. I expect Tulsi Gabbard to make a statement later tonight on where things are evolving in her investigation. But we've gone from the era of weaponization, where the primary tool was using prosecutors and FBI agents to disable Donald Trump and his followers and all the good people around him, to now potentially conspiring with foreign powers to have an impact on our elections. We had the Ukraine stuff this morning. And remember what we told you 3 weeks ago. Proof from the FBI that China sent tens of thousands of driver's licenses to the United States with fake names to get fake ballots to vote for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of the FBI informant in the FBI documents that we made public a few months ago. So China possibly conspiring with Joe Biden and the Democrats, and now possibly Ukraine. 2 investigations underway. We're going to keep you apprised of that right now.
Did you see how all that connected? Fake ballots, fake money, Ukraine, it's all connected. Trump is dismantling that entire network. Right out of the gate, they got rid of USAID. Remember Kamala Harris announced her campaign and all of a sudden she had $1 billion in her campaign? Really? Act Blue, we're not covering this today, but the House has renewed their subpoenas to Act Blue, saying, hey, your own attorney said you were committing fraud with smurfing and stuff like that. This is all happening. This is all happening right now. We want accountability. Sounds to me like we're getting it.
It's coming.
It's coming. Now, you could have come in on day one and throw the hammer down, but then you would have had all kinds of political capital spent and who knows, all the people on the take. Because if they're doing it for Joe Biden, you don't think they were doing it for a senator here, Gallego in Arizona, Mark Kelly in Arizona, and probably even John Fetterman over in Pennsylvania. All these guys that won these, the 2 senators out of Georgia. 2 Democrat senators? Really? Come on. I thought the South was going to rise again. What's going on here? You put some more plantation owners in power? Okay. So the whole thing is tied together. What can we do? We fix the money. We independently should adopt Bitcoin standards. Get off the dollar, right? You should seriously consider, well, I'm not even going to go there with the taxes, right? But whatever. Okay. But
be good citizens.
The whole system's changing, and Donald Trump is rewriting the board, setting us up for a good position going forward. Now, this ongoing conspiracy, in my opinion, is still ongoing. I believe that Brian Cole Jr., who's in jail for the J6 pipe bomb deal on January 5th, is not the person. I think that there's still an ongoing cover up there. And I don't know, Todd Blanche's complicity. I don't know if he's letting them dig a deeper hole. It's abhorrent to the American conscience that an innocent man would be sitting in prison. However, we have to recognize that a lot of soldiers have been sent overseas that died for nefarious causes, right? It's part of the game. It's just an unfortunate part of the game, the things that we're called upon to endure while things happening. But yesterday, while simultaneously they're dismissing the charges against the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys for seditious conspiracy, simultaneously they also superseded indictments on Brian Cole Jr.
Just a little bit ago, the man accused of planting those 2 January 6 pipe bombs, Brian Cole, he was charged with 2 new felony counts today. That is a significant escalation. He now faces a lot more legal jeopardy. The FBI continues to develop new evidence against him, and all the details on those new felonies over at justthenews.com. Go check them out.
Yeah. So basically, it allows them to escalate charges into like terrorism enhancements and stuff like that. It's a bad deal over there. Jocelyn Ballantyne is the lead prosecutor on that case. She's the same person who prosecuted General Flynn. She's the same person who prosecuted the Proud Boys, tried to get Enrique Ontario to flip on Donald Trump, the whole thing. She's in charge of that case. Is she digging a deeper hole for herself and her deep state cronies? Is she keeping the conspiracy alive? I don't know. But I don't like the way that smells at all. Right? So we still have a lot to fix for sure. Another thing that's been coming up more and more in the news, have you heard about these missing scientists?
Yes.
So we're up to 10 now. So this finally has gotten to the point where the public is concerned enough. Peter Ducey at Fox News asked Carolyn Levitt about this.
There are now 10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected?
I've seen the report, Peter. I haven't spoken to our relevant agencies about it. I will certainly do that and we'll get you an answer. If true, of course, that's definitely something I think this government and administration would deem worth looking into. So let me do that for you.
There are now 10 American.
Super curious about that. Some people think that they're being killed and silenced. Some people think the government is scooping them up and putting them into witness protection. Some people think foreign adversaries are coming after them. I don't think we know.
Or they're working on a special project somewhere in a mountain.
Another Manhattan project.
Yeah.
Could be. Yep, could be. Ponyboy says some of Kamala's campaign money might have come from the missing $100 billion Zelensky said he never received. Absolutely.
Could be.
$100 billion here, $200 million there, another scoop of money over here. Yeah.
What's like $100 billion between friends?
$100 billion that Zelensky's just like, I never got it. Do you remember when he had one of his like staff members that was trying to get over the border and they had like gold bars and cash? It was like this massive amount of stuff. Like, geez Louise. Oh my goodness. Crazy. All right, guys, it is time for us to jump over into private. Thank you so much for joining us today. Love having you here so much. Again, don't forget, April 25th, I am going to be in Spokane with the 1776live.us team. Please, if you're anywhere near Spokane, go to 1776live.us, get tickets. They're $49. It will be well worth it. I promise you will not walk away feeling like you wasted your money. It's going to be amazing. So go there. We're going to be talking about how you can be the change you want to see in the world. We'll be covering personal sovereignty. We'll be covering equity. We'll be covering how to use trusts to project your wealth into the future and protect your assets from creditors, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be talking about how to get out of all of your commercial debt, discharging credit cards. We'll be talking about the Bitcoin standard and how to utilize that, as well as probably we'll touch on other tokenized assets that you can get a hold of that are going to be very advantageous to you. We're also going to be talking about ghost phones, right? How to get off the surveillance network using Linux-based machines and things like that. I have a Ghost laptop. I love it. I need to use it more. I'm kind of stuck with this Apple because of the way we do the show and all my stuff, but I can make the transition. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I just need a day to do it. I got to move stuff over onto that computer. But ghost phones, right? How to do systems, phones that are not being constantly tracked by Google, Apple, Facebook, and all the different big, huge tech companies that track your every move. They know when you go to the bathroom. They know what your browser history is. They know everything. Ghost phones eliminate a huge chunk of that, right? Huge chunk of that. So we're going to have Caleb from Mark 37 there, and they make those phones, so you don't have to do it yourself. You can just buy it from them. You can buy a used, Android-based phone, and they're amazing. I've seen a couple of them. They're awesome. I'm planning on getting one here really shortly. So all of that's going to be covered at that event in Spokane. And of course, today's Thursday, and every Thursday we do our introductory meeting for people who are interested in 76live.us. So go to 1776live.us and register for today's Ignite presentation. You already put it in there. You don't have to put it in.
I put 1775.
You're so stuck on coffee.
I know.
1776, not 1775. All right, so we're going to jump over to private, and we're going to hear from J6 political prisoner Joe Biggs talking about the impact that this dismissed with prejudice on their case is going to have. Now, remember, he was a veteran. He's been denied his VA benefits, his pension, all of his service awards. He's a decorated military veteran. Okay, so we're going to hear from him. And then we're going to hear some really interesting stuff from Lauren Boebert. She's going after the Anthony Weiner laptop with that famous life insurance folder that had a, quote, frazzle drip video in it.
Oh.
She's taking that very serious. And remember, she asked Hillary Clinton about that in the deposition. which probably gives her enough reason to go get the subpoena to get that laptop and expose that. Big deal. Okay. The next thing is she's also going to be talking about the CIA's MK Ultra program. She's questioning if the program is still continuing. Remember, this is the program that was about brainwashing, compartmentalization. You can go read the book Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien that talks about this program. We believe that they're still doing the program. They never said they were going to stop.
Psychological control.
Psychological control. And now, guess how they do it? They do it through your social media in a big way. And that, again, another reason why you want to go onto the Ghost network and use Ghost phones and Ghost computers.
Yeah, it's weird how your feed can feel personalized, isn't it? Weird.
Exactly. Okay, guys, so we're going to be jumping over into private stream. Again, we have the solutions. The political remodel is underway. If you're interested in being a part of that, no matter where you're at, I've had quite a few people reach out to me and want to get that document on the game plan on exactly how to do it. So please, please, please get involved. It's going to become a bigger and bigger part of what we, the peasants, have to do, just like Clarence Thomas said, to take back our country. This country belongs to us. It doesn't belong to them. Who's them? Everyone who's not us. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll talk to you, the public people, again tomorrow, and the rest of you, we'll talk to you